Hey guys, Cliff Gray here with Flat Tops Wilderness Guides and True Hunts. Believe it or not, we're just about a month away from archery season, so I decided that I'm going to go over my layering system and layering recommendations for archery season, for elk and mule deer, and here in Colorado that corresponds to also our goat and sheep hunts, all right? And that's going to correspond with most of North America. And the layers that we use are going to be very similar. There's going to be a couple variations that I'll point out. And most of that is based on actually like the humidity profile, what weather to expect, that sort of thing. But generally your temperatures are going to be pretty similar, right? So on mountain hunts in September and late August, what you're looking at nighttime temperatures, the coldest you're going to see at night is probably, right around freezing, 30 degrees-ish. But most of your nights are going to probably be high 30s, right at 40. Just kind of depends on elevation. Your daytime temperatures could be all over the place, okay? So here in Colorado in the high country, your high could be 50 degrees, high 40s even on a really cold day, way up high at, 12, 13,000 feet, probably right around 50 degrees. But on the other extreme, it's very easy that you could have a mid-70s day, maybe even close to an 80-degree day, okay, particularly during the first couple weeks in September. So we're dealing with a lot of variation there. And then in terms of moisture, generally Colorado is dry, but in September we still have, a lot of the times we're in a thunderstorm type of cycle where every afternoon about 2 or 3 o'clock at any time you could get a downpour just from a thunderstorm, all right? So I'll kind of hit on that a little bit, what I do to mitigate that challenge. But anyways, how I'm going to start on the layering system, guys, I'm going to start from the closest to your body and go on out, all right? I'm going to give you lots of different suggestions across big price ranges and then also across different brands. All these brands that I mentioned do a great job. To be honest, the hardest thing nowadays is that there's so much high quality hunting gear, right? 10 years ago, it used to be completely different. You were kind of scrambling through mainstream mountaineering gear or whatever to find something that would work for you. Now there's a bunch of great hunting specific niche companies that are producing awesome gear, and I'm going to mention a few of them here. So first things first, what do I have as my base layer against my body? I am a wool guy, right? And the main reason is that for me, it keeps the moisture off of me and it keeps the stink off of me, right? And so I can use it on just a couple day hunt that I'm, guiding out of a lodge, or I can use it on a 10-day backpack hunt. And so I just consistently use wool because I prefer it, all right? So there's two different things you can do. If you run pretty warm, like, a lot of people just have different tolerances to cold, you can go with just a wool merino boxer, right? A boxer brief. First Lite makes some awesome ones. They're really the only place that I know of getting like a wool boxer brief. Yeah, you can wear cotton ones. I've worn those before, but they're not quite as comfortable. In any of that cotton material, synthetic boxers, they will build up kind of a smell over time. That's just a fact of life. So if you run warm, you can get away with just your base layer, basically being wool boxer briefs from First Lite. But usually for a guy like me, a little skinny guy who's always getting cold, I usually will have a merino long john, right? Okay, and so I've got a couple options here, and it's going to be the shirt and the pants. Usually my base layer is just a thin merino. This is actually -33, just a brand on Amazon. You can get their merino long johns. They make a good product. I find that it kind of stretches a little bit over time. It doesn't fit the same after 6 or 7 hunts as it did when you started, but it's kind of a budget-friendly option. And so another option on the merino base layer is First Lite stuff, kind of one of their key offerings. It's going to be merino wool. So I love their base layer stuff in addition to their boxers. This is their Aero Wool, and this stuff's actually really lightweight. So for me, even in early September, I can have a full base layer of their Aero Wool models, the pants and the shirt, and I'm not going to get too hot in it, all right? And then you can go up one level with their wool as a base layer. This is their Fuse, okay? All right, and it's the same deal. It's just a little bit heavier merino wool, and that's probably better for like a late September hunt, or just where you're going to be at higher elevations. The thing that I find is that a lot of times in September, I'm actually stripped down all the way to my base layer on the top. Obviously, generally I'm not walking around in my long johns, but on the top, a lot of times I'll go down to just that. So I'll factor that in. You know, I don't necessarily always go with the lighter merino because if I know that it's just a really warm day, I can actually get away with a little heavier merino and just be wearing that a lot of the day, all right? So those are some things for you to think about. That's what I recommend on the wool front, and that's my go-to for base layers. If you're just a guy that really likes synthetics, the bonus of synthetics is obviously they generally are a little bit lighter weight, and they generally don't hold the moisture, right? So wool, yes, it will wick it away from your body, but it still stays wet longer than synthetics, all right? So there's a lot of different synthetics you can use. I'm not even going to go into brands because there's so many mainstream options for you guys. You can go to Walmart and you can get pretty cheap synthetics that'll keep you warm, and they'll last you for a couple months and you have to buy a new pair. But there's other options on Amazon that you can use. But you can use the synthetic base layer if you want. All right, so I'll touch on socks real quick. I have another video on archery footwear that goes into this a little more in depth, but generally I'm wearing a silk liner sock and then a wool sock that's typically the weight of like a Darn Tough. I use Darn Toughs a lot, but there's a lot of different options out there. They're starting to make a lot of really good merino socks. So that's generally what I wear. A rag wool sock or a heavier sock is usually too much for this time of year. I have tried a couple times a compression sock instead of the silk liner sock. I actually got that suggestion from a hunter, and I've just tried that here in the preseason, out scouting and hiking a little bit, and it seems to work pretty well, so you might look into that. Might be a better option that you feel more comfortable with. I've used the silk liner socks for so long, and they're such like kind of a just a historical part of my kit. It's probably going to be hard for me to switch, but it's an option for you to look at. All right, so before we get into my upper body layering system, where kind of a big chunk of this is going to be, let's talk about pants, right? So over my base layer, pants. All right, so I'm going to give you guys 4 or 5 options, and you're going to have to try out these brands and the sizing and figure out what works for you best. I can tell you there's not a huge amount of difference in these pants. They're actually constructed very similarly. So there are differences in how they fit you and how comfortable they are. So go ahead and try a couple and see what you like. All right, so the first one I'm going to mention is the Prana Zion Stretch, right? I've mentioned this in other videos. Great pant. It's kind of like my daily pant too. These pants, my only complaint about them is they're super comfortable, budget friendly. You can find, if you're looking for sales, you can usually find these for somewhere between $60 and $80 if you're just kind of cautious and watch Amazon or Prana's website or whatever. So it's great on that front. The one thing about them is that they have like a DWR coating on them when you buy them. It seems like they do a little bit, but it wears off really quickly. All right, so they're not going to shed water at all after you go on a couple hunts with them unless you retreat them, and that's what I do. The other thing is they don't have any wind stopping to them. All right. Obviously, you can't have everything in a pant because these are lightweight, September hunting pants we're talking about, but just consider those are the downsides. I use them a lot, and they're probably one of my favorite pants. Another option that you can use is First Lite's Guide Light Pant. And so my first reaction to these pants when I put them on is they're very similar to the Prana. The only thing about them is they have a little bit better coating to them, right? You can see that there's a little water resistance to these. They've been treated a little more, but they also have a little more noise to them, all right? And it's related to that coating. So, they're very similar to Prana. Honestly, if I put these on with a blindfold on, I probably couldn't tell the difference in reality. But there's a little bit. These are going to be a little more water resistance, but at the same time, they're going to be a little noisier, all right? But these are a great pant. They have they have a few things that are kind of hunting centric in terms of pocket placement and that sort of thing that I think hunters are going to like, whereas Prana is not a hunting brand, all right? So that's the First Lite Guide Light Pant. The next one, I've used these quite a bit. These are an Under Armour pant, okay? And I don't know that Under Armour actually has a name for these. but they're one of their lighter weight pants. Again, very similar to the Prana and the First Lite Guide Light pant. Slightly heavier and going to be slightly warmer, and probably just a little bit more durable than the first two pants I mentioned. But honestly, they're going to be on the kind of warmer end, right? So end of September type of hunt, all right? They got kind of these stretchy little knees in them that look a little goofy to me, but I don't know that they have any utility. But that's those pants from Under Armour, all right? The next one, this is going to be similar to the Under Armour pants, and that's the corrugated pant from First Lite. These are going to be a little bit heavier, okay, than the first two options. Very similar to the Under Armour pant I showed you. Again, this is a great pant. It's a little, it has a good water coating and a little noise, but not bad at all. I don't think even for archery hunts it's going to be a problem. All right, so that's your First Lite corrugated pant. Much more durable than the Guide Light pant, so you might consider that. All right, but I think in high elevations you can get away with that pant for sure. All right. Okay, so next thing, we're gonna stick on the legs a little bit. Let's talk about Gators. All right, it's kind of funny because I hear people talk shit about Gators a little bit. You'll see this in social media things and stuff. People kind of laugh that a lot of mountain guys are always wearing Gators. I find it funny, and I find that it must be related to them being naive, because I honestly would put Gators on if the only advantage I got from wearing Gators was that they kept the laces of my boots tied. And I'm dead serious when I say that. When you're hiking a lot, a Gator will keep your laces tied on your mountaineering boots. And for me, that's a big advantage, all right? So I always wear them, all right? Outside of that tiny little advantage, the other big bonuses are you're always going to have dewy vegetation in the mountains all through September, okay? Even when it's not raining, you're going to get into moisture on your legs anyways. So the the Gators are going to keep that moisture from wicking into the top of your boot and up your leg, all right? That's a huge bonus. And then the other bonus is if you're sheep hunting or goat hunting, or you're up above timberline, hunting mule deer or something, they keep just the shit out of the top of your boots, right? So the little gravel off of scree, when you're in soft dirt that's, if you're going across an old slide or something, there's a lot of soft dirt and it's knocking up dirt clods and stuff. It keeps all that shit out of the top of your boot, all right? So I'll just go over a couple options. These are Kuyu's Yukon Gators. I love these Gators. I've used them on a bunch of hunts. Pretty durable. No big complaints, guys. They're a pricey option, but they're good. So that's Kuyu's Yukon option. These are going to be kind of something you guys probably haven't seen. These are actually Wilkins Canvas Gators, and these are from New Zealand of all places. All right. And they have a different style kind of in how they're sewn, which I really like. And they have kind of an elastic section kind of right above your boot, okay? And I find that this keeps your gator from going up and down, and it doesn't rely as much on a lower, a heel strap. And I actually really, really like these Gators. The one challenge of them is they're very difficult to get. The guy who makes them in New Zealand is a super nice guy. You can probably contact him. Pay him a little extra for shipping, and you can get some shipped to the U.S. But I find, I've used the Yukon Gators more than these in the history of my guiding career. But I would find that these Gators, what I've experienced with them so far, the Wilkins Canvas Gator, I'll probably end up moving to these as the years progress. They're a little bit different style, and they're real durable too, which I like. The one negative of them is they're a little more noisy than the Yukon Gator. Okay. The other option for early season is the First Lite, these short Gators. These are their Traverse Gators. And I had been looking for years for a short Gator. And the reason is that whenever, they're lightweight. They're lightweight and less bulky than the two other options I showed you in the Yukon Kuiu Gator. So I was always looking for really an option that if I was goat hunting or sheep hunting early in the season, and all I really was concerned about is keeping gravel and all that crap out of my shoes, and then keeping my laces tight. I wanted a short Gator, and you can actually look at my old videos. I've actually used a short one that's from the long distance running community. I think it's called the Dirty Girl Gator. Some gals make them. But you can look back. I might have that wrong. I'll put it in the show notes. But this actually hits the spot perfectly, this Traverse First Lite Gator. And what it is, it's lightweight and it's got some stretch to it. And these are perfect, okay, for just solving those two problems. It's going to keep a little moisture off of your boot also. But the primary purpose of this thing is just to keep your laces tied and keep any shit out of the top of your boot, all right? The one thing about them, I'll tell you, is like a heavy duty, mountaineering boot. You're probably going to have to get a size a little bit bigger than what you're used to. Like the medium for me, it's only going to go on kind of a softer boot, like a Merrill, or a couple of the models of crispy boots that are more of a synthetic soft kind of boot, for early season. These will work perfect, and it kind of makes sense, right? For a later season boot, these are not going to fit over the bulk as well, all right? All right, guys, so let's talk about your upper body, all right? So I use what I call a three-layer system. I already talked about one, and that's my base layer, right? Usually merino wool, and in September, lightweight merino wool. The next one is a puffy, and you're going to see from what I go through here that I'm a puffy nerd, all right? I'm going to show you 4 or 5 different options of just the puffy or insulating component. All right, so on puffies, guys, the big question that's going to come first is down versus synthetic. 80% of the time, I'm using a synthetic, and that's even in the dry climate of Colorado. So on synthetics, if they do get wet, they're still going to provide you some insulating value, okay? A down puffy is not going to provide you that, all right? So with a down puffy, you're going to have to put it in a dry bag or something in your pack so it doesn't get wet and therefore become useless for you and not provide you that insulation, all right? So that's the negative of down. The big positive of down is it's considerably more compressible, all right, in your pack, all right, and it's a lot lighter from what I find in terms of lightness versus insulation. You're going to find that down's better on that front. These puffies that are synthetic insulation, they're going to be bulkier and a little bit heavier for how much warmth they provide, all right? So you're going to have to make a choice on down versus synthetic for you. For me, my choice is early season, like the first 10 days of September. A lot of times when I'm scouting, I'll use down because I can just have I got a little tiny one I'll show you, and I can pack it real nice. All the other seasons, including the majority of September on sheep, goat, and archery elk hunts, I'm going to have a synthetic puffy with me, all right? Okay, so let's go through my down, okay? This is a Marmot Quasar jacket, okay? And this is a down jacket. It is technically the down's treated where it should be able to tolerate some moisture, but I always just put it in a dry bag just in case. This thing packs down to about this big, and it's the lightest option of the ones I'll show you, and it's very warm, okay? This Marmot Quasar or whatever it is, you can find it out there, but you can find a lot of this, the same level of jacket from all the mountaineering companies in this down format. All right. The next 2 options I'm going to show you are First Lite options. So this one here, the Brooks jacket is actually very similar in terms of weight and bulk as the down jacket I just showed you. All right. And a nice thing about it has a hood. So that's the Brooks puffy from First Lite. This is the Uncompadre, all right? And this is the synthetic, nice hood on it, all right? And this is going to be, in my mind, kind of my go-to synthetic or puffy weight, right? And the next one's going to be very similar in that regard. This is going to be a little bit bulkier than the first 2 options I showed you, but again, synthetic, and is going to be useful even if it gets a little wet, okay? And I'll throw this on here. One thing I like about this jacket and the Brooks jacket is, for me personally, it might just be my torso size. As a puffy, they're actually a little bit longer in the back, and I actually like that, okay? For whatever reason, it fits me a little bit better, and that's the First Lite options are just longer in the back, kind of goes 3/4 of the way down my ass, and I actually prefer that fit. So that's something you might consider when you're looking at puffies. All right, in the same category as the Uncompadre, then that's the Uncompadre 2.0 from First Lite. Kind of what I would view in the same category in terms of bulk and insulation ability is the Kuyu Kenai, all right? It's a great jacket. It's been on dozens of hunts with me. And they've actually got some new versions of this that I haven't tried yet, all right? So you might consider those, all right? But this is the Kenai. I think they have like a Kenai double. I don't really, in my mind, the Uncompadre or the Kenai from Kuiu, they're the right level of insulation for a September hunt at higher elevations or kind of after the first week of September. Before that, yeah, I might go with the Brooks level insulating jacket, puffy, whatever. But for me, the bulk of September in the mountains, Uncompadre 2.0 or this layer of the Kenai. If I was going to go with more synthetic insulation, to me it's going to be a later in the season jacket. And in my mind, if I'm going to go where I'm going to have a heavier puffy, I would actually prefer to stay at this level of puffy and then go with a heavier outer jacket, all right? Basically, like, to me, if I need more insulation than this, I'm going to go, late October and into November, I'm going to be basically wearing like a parka, all right? But I'll still keep this level of puffy so I can layer that in if I need to, all right? Okay, so I'm just going to mention one thing right now because it can be an alternative to a puffy, and it can you can layer it in there to your base layer and insulation level or layer, and that's thrift store wool. For years, I would use this, and one thing that you guys are going to find is with the higher end mountaineering layers or the higher end layers from hunting companies that are kind of focusing on that mountain hunting stuff like First Lite, Kuyu, Sitka, all those companies, it's not quite as durable as you would hope for. All the companies kind of fall into that category, and it's because they're providing a lightweight option that due to the technical specs of it, it's going to keep you warm at a high level relative to weight, okay? But one of the costs of that's always going to be a little bit of durability, all right? So as a horse guy and a guy who's working in the mountains a lot during hunting season, I would use a lot of thrift store wool, okay? And you can find like merino wool like this. This is probably some old lady's, wool shirt there. I would use that as like even a base layer, or on top of my base layer is kind of an insulating layer. And then I used to wear a lot of these too. Just these plaid, normal wool button-up shirts. I like them. They're kind of a classic, and they keep you warm, and that's the key thing. And they keep you warm if you do get wet. All right, you're for sure giving up a little bit of the weight savings that you're gonna get with these other options, but these are going to be a budget-friendly option. They're going to be available if these other guys are sold out, and they can get the job done. All right, so don't discount them too much. All right, guys. So I just went over the first two layers of the 3-layer system: the base layer, the insulating layer, the puffy layer. All right, and now I'm going to talk about rain gear. All right, so in the rain gear layer, I primarily use the Yukon rain gear from Kuyu, and the reason is it's durable and it gets the job done. All right. If I was doing less horse exposed hunting, less hunting that was rough on gear, I would go with a lower level of rain gear, right? It'd be lighter weight, less bulk, and it would get the job done still. For me, I have to have some rain gear that's durable, and I don't want to be changing rain gear all the time, all right, just based on the type of hunting. So I go with the Yukon rain gear. You won't go wrong if you go with Kuyu's Yukon rain gear, but you can also save some money, and you can save some weight and bulk if you go with the options from First Lite, the options from Sitka, and there's some other providers of lighter weight rain gear, even from Kuyu. From Kuyu, there's some lower level rain gear that they provide that's going to be a great option for you. You're just going to have to realize that there's always a trade-off, right? If it's lightweight, it's not going to be as durable, all right? If it works really, really well, in terms of like no water from the outside is going to touch you, it's not going to breathe very well. That's just a fact of how these things are made. One thing for you guys to always consider is that you have to be strategic how you use rain gear, all right? Try not to use it when you're going to be active, all right? That's one problem that the guys find is that they'll put their rain gear on, and they've got their puffy under it, and they've got their base layer under it, and they get wet. And the reason is that they have that rain gear on, they start to perspire, when they're active, and that can be really dangerous. It doesn't matter how good your rain gear is. It doesn't matter, what fancy pants shit you have. If you perspire inside your rain gear, and it's good rain gear, which by definition is basically going to have less breathability, you're going to get wet from your perspiration, so you have to be careful of that. It's not about the gear, guys. It's about how you're utilizing the gear, all right? So in my mind, when it rains, what I'll do is if I know I'm going to be active, I'll usually, when I put my rain gear on, I'll take a puffy off, okay? And yeah, it might be chilly for a little bit, but the minute I start moving, I'll warm back up. If I know that if I know that I'm going to have, mild levels of activity and I can stay under that level of exertion where I'm not going to perspire, yeah, I'll keep the puffy layer on. A lot of times that's just like when I'm glassing and stuff. But I always think about it, okay? So if I've been glassing in the rain, we've just been holding tight, and then all of a sudden the rain stops, but it looks like it's kind of threatening, I'm not going to keep my rain gear on, keep all the layers on, and then hike for 3 miles and then sit down and glass again, all right? I'm always going to stop and think and figure out, okay, we're going to move. Should I just take the rain gear off, and then just have it somewhere ready in my pack where I can get it out? If I don't want to do that, I might take the puffy off, stick it in my pack, put the rain gear back on, all right? And that's kind of the system you have to work with. And realize, like, once it's done, it's done. Once you get wet inside the rain gear, it's hard to turn that around, all right? So be preemptive about it whenever you're looking at things. That's just a tip on strategy. All right. So that's the three layer upper body system, all right? Base layer, puffy, rain gear. Sometimes I'll put in one more layer, and really, guys, it's up to you. I kind of mix this in as with a camp jacket or something. I'm not going to do this if it's a true backpack hunt where I'm counting ounces. But if it's a wall tent camp or something, this time of year in September, I'll usually bring one more jacket. And usually it's a soft shell type of jacket. This happens to be one from Under Armour. It's their lightweight soft shell jacket. It's a great jacket, no complaints. I've used it on several hunts. And this is an awesome jacket from First Lite. This is the Sawtooth. And it's kind of unique. It's actually partly wool. I find that this thing is super warm for the size of it and the weight of it. And again, one of the things I really like about this thing is it's got the long tail on it. And for me, that fits me better in the back here. It's got a longer tail, and I kind of prefer that. But you may not like that, so you might want to go with a soft shell from another company. But both of these are good options. And that's Under Armour's soft shell, and this is First Lite's Sawtooth, right? If you're bringing a soft shell because you're concerned for the durability of your puffy, I recommend a soft shell like this, like the Under Armour one. This Sawtooth isn't the best for that because it's got, it's a softer texture. You can also just put your rain gear on top of that. But again, exposing your rain gear to, rough vegetation or terrain may be just as bad as exposing your puffy. So it just depends on what rain gear you have. You just got to kind of factor that in and think about what you're going to be exposed on your hunts. Most of my hunts, to be honest, in Colorado, archery hunts, sheep and goat hunts in the high country, you're not exposed to a lot of, vegetation that's going to tear your gear up, okay? So a lot of times I don't mind wearing a soft shell as an outer layer. I don't always feel like I have to have something on top of it. But if you do, and you've got the room for another layer, a soft shell or this type of Sawtooth is just a nice, extra jacket to have at hand. All right, so a couple of accessories, all right, guys, for September archery season. Usually in the mornings, you're going to want a pair of gloves. My go-to for years and kind of the budget option is just these grommets. These are just rag wool grommets. You know, you can get your fingers out. They're easy to work with. They're not durable. 5-6 hunts, these are going to be toast. They fall apart. They fray. You know, they're not well made, but they're a good option for you and they keep your hands warm. Other option I like is these hybrid gloves from First Lite. Okay, they're very comfortable and they're pretty lightweight. You know, for rifle hunters, you can easily shoot with this glove. For bow hunters, you're probably not gonna want to have a glove, period, when you're actually setting up for a shot or setting up a calling situation or whatever. That's one thing nice about the rag wool gloves is, one, you can get your fingers out. Most of the time, you're not going to want to shoot a bow even with that, but they're also very easy to pull off because they're basically a cheap glove and they feel like a cheap glove. They don't fit the best, kind of one size fits all situation, but they're easy to get off. Okay, so that's your options on gloves. The other thing that I always have with me, even on these early season hunts, is I just have a wool beanie. And for me, you know, there's lots of different options for hats, but the wool beanie is the best because I can use it effectively and quickly to regulate heat. Okay, so everybody knows the old saying, you lose a lot of heat through your head, and that is true. And so a lot of times I'll have this beanie on, and the thing about it, unlike a baseball cap or some other more bulky hat, I can take this beanie off really quickly and I can fold it up and I can shove it in a pocket. You know, it's actually hard to do that with a brimmed hat and stuff. It's always a weird deal to wrap it up and shove it in somewhere. So I like a beanie because I can do that real quickly. A lot of times, and these are like, you know, this is a cold wool beanie. It's probably like a unisex thing or whatever. Maybe it's even a woman's style. I don't know, and I don't really give a shit because it works so well. This one has a little brim. I kind of like that. Keeps a little sun off my nose up, you know, particularly on above timberline hunts. But I can just fold it up. I can stick it in my pocket, stick it in my pocket of my jacket, and I've got it handy. When I'm hiking, I don't have any barriers to taking that hat off. I find if I've got a cap on, I don't really want to take it off because where am I going to put it? I got to get the bill of that cap somewhere. Where with these, I can just take it off, shove it in, you know, hike for a couple miles. If I start to feel a little chill, I can put it right back on, all right? So just your wool beanie is your go-to deal for your head. Okay, there's always a little personal preference, but I like that. I like a wool beanie and then really good sun lotion, but that's more on the gear things. So anyways, guys, I hope I gave you some good options. I threw a lot of brands at you and a lot of different styles. Everything is about personal preference. You're going to have to go through some gear, but I hope I gave you a framework that's going to work for you really well on those September hunts. All right, so good luck out there, guys. Thanks for watching.